I feel like there is something that's missing in the conversation regarding ginger bug, its nutritional benefits and its application and the understanding of how it actually works. So, for example, what I have here, I have ginger roots, I have an apple bug here, and I have tepache, which is a ginger bug, but it's with pineapple instead. But basically, if you know what a ginger bug is, it is a fruit, it is an aromatic, it is a whatever. A bug is an aromatic in a bunch of liquid that has enough carbohydrates for the yeast to eat. Once they're eaten, the yeast will create gas and a bunch of other metabolic, nutritionally interesting compounds. Your bubbles are going to have a bell curve. So at the very beginning of your yeast eating sugars, they're going to be ramping up. As in, there's going to be a lot of maybe undigestible sugars in this first part. You're going to be amplifying the amount of bubbles that are present in your ferment. So what is a bug? A bug is a certain type of aromatic, whether it be ginger, apples, pineapple. You could do cinnamon, you could do mint, you could do literally fill in the blank. If it's a plant matter, you can technically make a bug out of it. The application is going to be different depending on what it is that your end goal is. And if you're doing it for, tasty reasons, maybe you don't want to do an onion bug. If you're wanting to do it for nutritional reasons, maybe you do want to do a ginger bug because ginger is very life-giving. It is a very nutritionally beneficial ingredient that is used throughout history as something that helps heal. So when you make a bug, it is your aromatic plus enough water plus enough sugar. The yeasts, the little microbes on this, are going to be in their yummy sugary solution, and they're going to eat the sugars, and they're going to create not only gas as a byproduct, so carbonation, effervescence. If I were to open this up, this one is really quite active. Can you hear that? That's an apple bug. It's the yeasts are creating fermentation. They are eating the carbohydrates. They are happy. They're creating CO2 and other metabolic compounds that I'll talk about later. And so what is missing is that people forget that there is a bell curve to nutritional fermentation regarding a ginger bug or any other type of bug that you're trying to make. So in this first part of the bell curve, the yeasts are ramping up and they are eating sugars. This first part right here, there is a lot of sugar and there's a lot of yeast. That gas that's being made, if you drink it then, you're going to get that same gaseousness inside of your body. And so technically, consuming a young bug that's in the process of ramping up is not going to be as digestible as at the bell curve, consuming one that's near the end, because the yeasts have been fed, they are happy, the sugars have been consumed, and they've been made into other metabolically interesting compounds. So with this bell curve, you'll get the ramp up and you'll see tiny bubbles starting. This is at the start of any type of new ferment, or at the start of after you just feed it, it's going to start bubbling. And then when you hit the top, you're going to hit maximum bubbles. You're going to hit a lot of fermentation. You're going to hit a lot of carbonation being produced. And then afterwards, as you keep going, so for example, this one is at the later end. It's on the end side of this bell curve, and there's going to be less carbonation because there's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4 bubbles, but there's going to be less carbonation because the yeasts have been fed. They're happy and they've created other metabolic compounds. When you start going down this other end of the bell curve, the yeasts, if they're in an aerobic, so with air, they will start to eventually then lean into creating vinegar. Or if you put it into a bottle and you have an airlock on it and you put it into an anaerobic without air environment, it is going to then start creating alcohol. So both are fine, both are good. They're just, so it doesn't matter what you're making from your bug. But eventually, if you take it past that bell curve, you will then either split and make either vinegar, if you have air that's being incorporated, or you'll make alcohol. So for nutritionally beneficial and easier digestibility, when talking about a ginger bug, apple bug, any other kind of bug that you're interested in, you're going to want to wait past that peak so that when you are drinking, you don't get gas. There's a reason why when you have like a Coke or a Sprite or any other kind of like artificially carbonated drink, you drink it and you get this gas buildup. It's because they have inserted gas that is equivalent to being at the top of that bell curve. The best soda would be at the very end, this tail end of the bell curve of yeast carbonation production from the sugars being eaten. When you're at the tail end, the majority of the sugars have been eaten and they have been transformed into metabolic compounds that are helpful for us. So what do yeasts make that are good for us? What is going to be in it, nutritionally speaking? Besides, so there's going to be very little carbonation. There's going to be 2-3 bubbles. But yeast, besides carbonation, they also make B vitamins. They make specifically B1. They also make B6. And they make a variety of other B vitamins. So anyone that is lacking in energy is going to be interested in amplifying their B vitamin consumption, because the B vitamins as a whole, their family, these are energizing vitamins. Alongside the energy production properties of B vitamins are also very important for nerve function. When you look into all types of like neuropathy or even like POTS or even just nervous system, muscular types of diseases or pathologies, there is going to always be an associated B vitamin deficiency. And so having foods where yeasts naturally make vitamins, microbes naturally make vitamins. Where do vitamins A, B1 through B12, vitamin C, vitamin D, vitamin E, vitamin K, what makes these vitamins? Microbes. Microbes make these vitamins. Vitamin D comes from the sun. That's probably one of the exceptions, but there are other forms of vitamin D that are made by microbes. That is how vitamins are made. People often forget that. Minerals come from Mother Earth. Vitamins come from microbes, always. People that are looking to augment, solve for a deficiency in a certain vitamin should look for ways to incorporate their gut microbiome with yeast, microbes, etc. that make that specific vitamin to solve for that deficiency. These tail end yeasts, also in your tail end soda, are going to also have naturally made organic acids such as lactic acid. Now, nutritionally speaking, there is this concept, and even in a more chemistry type of approach, there is the concept of like dissolves like. If someone has lactic acid buildup within the system, they are often going to require a lactic acid intake to help resolve this type of lactic acid buildup, which also results in like muscular fatigue, for example. And so usually this is why when you have someone that's got muscle fatigue, they're going to say, wow, I've got a lot of lactic acid buildup because my muscles are sore. And then we'll say, wow, so you need vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. So an acid to help dissolve an acid. Yeasts also make enzymes. And so the yeast, it's going to take the sugar, it's going to eat it, and out as a byproduct, the yeast is going to have an enzyme be made, which will help further digest more sugars. And so what you're doing is if you consume that type of yeast and the enzymes that are made from that yeast, you're going to effectively help establish a gut microbiome that when you're having other foods, these foods are digested more effectively because there are a sufficient amount of enzymes in the gut for these foods to be digested. Augmenting an internal capacity for enzymes is what makes digestion easier. Someone that has a hard time digesting food, they're struggling with gas, bloating, constipation, diarrhea, IBS, fill in the blank. If they're having a hard time with their digestion, they need to amplify their body's ability to digest food, and they need to consume foods that also assist the body in digesting foods. Meaning, if they're to consume a food that already has enzymes in it, that means the body has less work to do. Digestion becomes easier. So this is why it is important to keep in mind when you are consuming your ginger, apple, or pineapple bug, the kind of bug that you have, when you're making maybe a ginger beer or an apple soda or any other kind of concoction, that you're doing it on the latter half of the bell curve. If you were to drink it during the first half, you will get gas. If you do it on the second half of this bell curve and on the tail end, you will get no gas. And so what's important is that if you are trying to have these bugs be part of your diet, and they should be part of your diet, if you have had a hard time with the gas production, you really need to make sure that you're consuming these bugs at the right moment when they are right to have. This is the equivalent of making sure that you're consuming the foods at their correct preparation phase. You don't pull a cake out of the oven half done and try and eat that. You don't pull a sourdough bread, or any other kind of bread, out of the oven halfway through and expect to eat that and have it go down, and not cause gas. You would get a brick in your stomach if you tried to consume a half-baked sourdough bread. You wait for it to go all the way through its process to be fully cooked so that cooking has done its process and it has made your food its most digestible. Same thing here. Take your ferment all the way through its yeast eating its sugar phase, and then at that end, that is when it is done cooking. That is when you should be having it. All right, so hi, editing phase, Matthew here. And I thought what this video missed was the practical application of where and how to tell when a soda is ready to have. This soda is an apple pumpkin spice one, and I used some of it already in part of a bread recipe, but to get natural leavening, see here. But I did want to outline, and it was very active, and because of its high activity level and that high yeast peak, I was able to use those active yeasts for bread to get that natural rise. But for a soda, it's still too much, and you know that when you make a bread, you have high yeast activity, and then you continue to cook it, so you continue to process these yeasts, and they rise, and then the yeasts die under that high heat, and you get an edible product. So, but because of that high activity level, I would not be able to drink this just because that pure amount of yeast activity would have been too much for the gut, and it would have caused indigestion. So what does that mean? Let's open this. We'll listen to how intense the pop is here. And if it's too much, then, because this has been sitting for 3 days in the refrigerator, if the pop is too much, we will keep doing recordings until this has a pop that is appropriate for a nutritional soda. So without further ado. You hear that gas release, and then here you can see all of that coming up. This is pretty good. This is still a little bit too underdone for me personally. You are more than welcome to try it at this point. But what I am going to do is I will record this later at a different time. And when it has less of a pop, I almost want it to be on the almost flat phase. I want there to be a very little pop to it. And that is when it is the most nutritionally beneficial, still effervescent, but it has more of a smooth bubble and not like a carbonation attack on the palate. For the sake of consistency and getting a good visual, let's pour some of this as is right now to give you an idea of what it is looking like in the glass. And so we do have a good frothy head on it. And you're going to get still, like, if you have good digestion, you could have this and it would not cause gas, but in a more nutritional sense, it may be more interesting to keep waiting for this to settle down even more. And so this is what it looks like. You've got good bubbles all over, and these bubbles will stay. They'll become more fine, smaller, more consistent bubbles the later on we get with this type of soda. So essentially, what is it that we're doing here? We are letting the yeasts continue to eat the sugars, keep going down that bell curve. And as the yeast go down the bell curve, you'll get less carbonation. And how do you make a soda less carbonated? How do you make a soda flat? You can make a flat soda by just leaving this open for maybe even an hour, and your soda will get flat. And you could even just do this. This would be called something like decanting, like a wine, but you can decant this for a certain amount of time until the bubbles are less active, and you would then get a more digestible type of naturally fermented soda that is actually nutritionally interesting for the body. But because I'm not wanting this to get actually too flat and I've got things to do, I'm going to take this, put it back in the fridge, and I'll pop it every so often until it gets an appropriate amount of fine bubbles coming up without it being too intense. And when I hit that point, I'll show you, and you will get the idea of what a easy to digest soda looks like. When you can see what an easy to digest soda looks like, it'll be easier to replicate at home, and you'll be able to enjoy the benefits of a naturally fermented soda. So there you go. I really hope this technique is helpful for you. If you do have questions though, please feel free to ask them in the comment section below, or you can also reach out to me personally at crestdietetics.com or on other social media platforms. So this thing's gonna go back in the fridge. All right, so we are next day with my apple pumpkin spice soda, and we're just going to double check the carbonation. So that pop is still pretty strong. And actually, what I may do, you can let a soda get flat by letting it breathe. And so I am going to just kind of put like either a coffee filter or like a kitchen towel over this. And I'm gonna let this breathe and kind of relax. And then I will let it, and then I'll go again. All right, so in this case, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a kitchen towel over it. I'll come back in like maybe like an hour or two, and I'm not gonna go to the gym, and I'll come back, and then I will close it, and then I will wait maybe another hour or two, and then I'll check the pop again. And at that time, it should be much more flat, and so ready to drink. All right, so this has been closed for about 2 hours now after letting it breathe for, it was honestly 2-3 hours. So let's see if the pop is less. Oh, that is much less. And the amount of, I still have bubbles rising. You maybe can't see from the video quality that I have from my camera, but there are pinpoint little bubbles coming up. And because these are pinpoint bubbles, that's going to mean that this is going to go down very smoothly as opposed to having bigger, more aggressive bubbles. All right, so let's pour to see what our drink looks like in the glass. All right, so I'm getting very fine bubbles, and on a top-down view, it's looking like this. And now let's do a taste test. This is going to be a much smoother drink to have. Oh, that's pretty, oh, that's, yes, this is what you are looking for. Now, so as a summary, what is most interesting about a quote unquote more flat soda? Less big bubbles, easier digestion, less free floating sugars, which have been transformed, metabolized by the yeasts that are present in the drink, and they have been converted into nutritive compounds such as enzymes, B vitamins, organic acids. If I were to drink this beforehand, I would not have as many of these nutritional compounds that are interesting for the body to do well. I can use my eyes and ears and senses determining if my drink is ready or not, or if it's too ugly. And of course, I have had my very fair share of big bubble carbonated drinks, and I'm trying to help so that those in the future won't have as much indigestion as I did when I was trying to get started, because you want to have a yummy soda and also not be gassy or feel like weird in your stomach or whatever because of the amount of carbonation that's present. And this is a way to effectively use fermentation as a process to make your drink more, nutritious and easier to digest. Now, this type of drink preparation that I've made is exactly what I would use for someone that may have a nutritional protocol that they're interested in amplifying B vitamins, amplifying the organic acids in their body, amplifying their body's ability to digest foods better. I would recommend them doing, fermented foods, and that includes this type of drink. And so if you are struggling with indigestion, or you'd like a new fun way to try a soda while also taking care of, some maybe digestion issues, this is a fantastic experiment to lean into and to have fun with. And in a way, it can be enjoyable and beneficial. And for me as a dietitian, I love when something is a win-win. Clients happy because they get to have a yummy drink. I'm happy because they get to have something that's truly enjoyable to taste. There's success on both sides, and we are both happy. So cheers. If you have questions about using a bug in your nutrition plan, please feel free to ask in the comment section below. Otherwise, you can also find me at crestdietetics.com, and I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I will see you in the next one. Bye.